Good afternoon, everybody. I expect a lot of people to come in after or during lunch. We will see. Can somebody close the door as a sign of starting? Let me first introduce myself. My name is Marco Blom. I'm Scientific Director of Alzheimer Nederland, and I'm board member of Alzheimer Europe. Welcome to the session on warm technology, both participants in the room and those online, but that seemed not to be too many, I'm informed, but so doesn't matter. Concerning the topic of today, I noticed that there are a lot of presentations in this conference on technology. For instance, in the poster session, I saw 12 presentations there on this topic. There was a special symposium from the Distinct network. And even this morning I saw in some sessions I didn't expect any technology in. There were two presentations on technology. So it's all over the place. And the same is, I think, true about user involvement or participation in research by people living with dementia themselves as experiences by living, I would say. At the crossing of technology and user involvement lies the concept of warm technology. So it might be getting a lot of familiarity with you as participants here, I'm sorry. But maybe you will gain some new insights as well. But you can grasp the opportunity to ask questions and discuss with us afterwards your own ideas about this really recognized concept, I think. So the concept of warm technology will be introduced by two speakers and a pre-recorded video presentation. But maybe to say a few words about this concept. It's a concept in which we can combine technical readiness together with dementia readiness. And by combining it, we can scale up the potential of solutions to be of really value in use for people living with dementia. So this session is fully dedicated to the work of the Expertise Center Dementia and Technology in the TU Eindhoven, which we recently, together with the TU Eindhoven, we founded this Expertise Center, and we are proud of it that it is this case. So we have a pre-recorded video with presentation of Wijnand IJsselsteijn of the TU Eindhoven. Those of you who participated in the Alzheimer Europe conference in The Hague might remember him as one of the plenary speakers. The conference was back in 2019, so maybe people are new into the field. So this will be quite new, I think. And two members of the team of Wijnand, if I may call it that way, will follow up on that. So what we do, we have these three presentations in a whole, so following up each other and taking the questions afterwards. Speaking about questions, you can download the app to participate in the Q&A in the hybrid sessions. I did it in the session before, and if you put a question, you'll be guaranteed that it will be answered. So this may be a good suggestion, otherwise we do it by the microphone. And I should ask you one more thing, is that you should vote for the posters. I'm obliged to say that for the organization committee, but it's also nice to do. So please vote if you haven't done so after this session right away, because it has to be done before 4 o'clock. Okay, then we will start with the video. We hope it works. This doesn't work now, but maybe here.
Thanks for joining this session. I would have loved to have been there in person myself. Unfortunately, I recently broke my left ankle and therefore have quite limited mobility and travel opportunities. My name is Wijnand IJsselsteijn. I'm a professor at TU in Eindhoven, as well as co-founder and co-director of the Expertise Center on Dementia and Technology. Today I'd like to focus on warm technology, and in particular zoom in on the opportunities that are offered by AI and design for people with dementia. This work is done in the context of the Expertise Center, as well as a larger program called QoLead, which is a national collaboration funded by the Dutch government to focus on improving quality of life through AI solutions. The collective challenge that we see ourselves faced with is to maintain and improve quality of life for people with dementia for as long as possible. We have to do more with less. That is to say, there will be more people in need of care in the future, while we're also seeing a decrease in the availability of care professionals and informal caregivers. So there is a tendency also to look at the opportunities that technology offers us, both in terms of increasing care efficiency as well as in terms of increasing quality of life. Any proper solution will need to also pay heed to a number of boundary conditions, if you like. The first of them being to focus on the person, so tailor care services to individual needs, the right solution for the right person at the right time. And doing this whilst avoiding stigma and increasing, preferably, the dementia literacy in the community and within the network of the person living with dementia. And we need to do this whilst acknowledging that there are growing cultural and socioeconomic diversities that will potentially also lead to health inequalities. And so any solution that we develop needs to take this into account and avoid increasing health inequalities. And finally, of course, the best solution would be to prevent dementia. Now, of course, this is not a tenable solution for many people, but it is worth to focus on this also through technology if possible. In developing and using technology for people living with dementia, there are a number of specific challenges that we have formulated, which we would like to address through the QoLead program. The first challenge is to be person-centered, to really put the person with dementia at center stage of the development. Although this is claimed quite frequently, it happens as an exception rather than as a rule. Most solutions are more or less taking technology as a given, take technology as their point of departure, and will ask themselves, I have this technology, what can it mean for people with dementia? We try to do the reverse. We try to actually say, what do people with dementia need in their particular context, and how can our toolbox of technologies be applied to that? It really requires active involvement of people with dementia. Secondly, we adhere to a precision approach, which means we would like to develop the right intervention at the right time for the right person in the right context. And thirdly, we need to address the implementation gap. Even though many solutions, also those that have been developed in a person-centered way, are available, and they're generally not accepted. So acceptance and use, longitudinal use within care context, is the exception rather than the rule. So we really need to take up this challenge of bridging the implementation gap to real care contexts and real care processes, which of course means involving also care professionals, care organizations, and people who are experts in implementation sciences, for instance. In the QoLead program, our approach is more or less based on 5 pillars. First and foremost, of course, we're aiming to see some significant improvement in quality of life and quality of care for people living with dementia. And we'd like to do this through the use of warm and smart technologies, while at the same time acknowledging that technology may not be the right solution for a given situation. So also non-technological solutions might be appropriate. The designs that we develop are developed in context, together with the people with dementia and their informal carers, and utilizing the potential of AI to learn, to adapt, to personalize, and to scale. And we do this in a context of open, interdisciplinary, and continuously learning communities. A fundamental concept that we've developed at the ECDT is the concept of warm technology. This underlies many of the things that we do. Warm technology focuses on what's possible for a person with dementia rather than defining them by their disease and having a more medicalized view of dementia. We focus on the support for social and emotional needs, trying to enhance feel-good moments, and we really want to utilize technology to personally empower a person, be non-intimidating, really user-friendly, and increase a person's self-reliance and self-efficacy. And we want designs to be beautiful and non-stigmatizing, and acknowledging rich diversity between people. And finally, we need designs to be personalized, also really acknowledging both sensory motor and emotional needs, as well as understanding personal histories, cultural backgrounds and differences in contexts and preferences. If you'd like to learn more about warm technology, I'd like to refer you to a chapter that we've written in this wonderful book called HI and Design in the Context of Dementia. Now, what I'd like to do now is to focus a little bit more on the opportunities offered by AI for people living with dementia. And I see it a little bit like the walking stick that this senior person is holding. It's a support tool. It's a tool that really helps a person move forward in life and achieve their ambitions. It's uncomplicated, intuitive, etc. And it's really personalized. So that's kind of how I view AI. But before I go into the particularities of AI with dementia, maybe a few words about AI as a general technology. So a little background on AI. AI might sound futuristic, and I know there's a big hype around AI, but really we're already using it today at scale, I would say. Every time we use our mobile phone, every time we're Googling something, we're basically using AI tools. It's deeply ingrained in various aspects of society. And AI, although I use it as a singular word, is really a class of technologies. It's a broad set of tools. And as this knowledge map shows, there are sort of the classical programming approaches, logic-based, knowledge-based approaches. There are statistical approaches with probabilistic methods and machine learning methods, either supervised or unsupervised or through reinforcement learning. And there are sort of the sub-symbolic kind of approaches, which include distributed AI and affective computing, for example. So you can see that there are already many different tools out there. And to talk about AI is actually to talk about a large toolbox, if you like, of potential ICT tools. For especially the learning approaches or the adaptive approaches in AI, success or failure really critically depends on both volume and quality of data. So the availability of data is a key component of the workings of some of the more machine learning kind of approaches to AI. And these data also will need to be cleaned, and they will need to be checked for quality, and they might need to be annotated, etc. So there's quite a bit of human labor also involved in getting the right data for your AI algorithms. So in short, I feel that AI is already incredibly powerful within very specific, well-defined domains. We don't need to worry about AI becoming a super intelligence taking over the world or AI gaining sentience. That's all science fiction and not part of the reality of AI at the moment. So why would we want to focus on AI for people with dementia? Well, AI has a number of characteristics that make it really interesting as a potential solution. One is that it's really good at sort of pattern detection, and then based on a database of patterns, it can predict sort of what are the next moves that might be happening, but also what are aberrant patterns, right? Patterns that are distinguishable from previous patterns. So, for instance, one could use that to diagnose the onset or exacerbation of certain conditions. And this notion of adaptivity, this notion of learning from data is really a strong notion that helps in personalizing solutions, right? One a system might be able to be, start out rather generically, but then may become more personalized as one uses it. Think about, for instance, your smart thermostat in your home. It gets to know the home, it gets to know the people's behavioral patterns, and it will adjust accordingly. So it learns a very specific, idiosyncratic way of your home and the people in there, how they interact with, well, room temperature in this case. And the nice thing is that AI solutions are scalable. So whilst using it, you're also contributing to a database of behaviors and usage patterns, which might actually be also representative of other users that show similar behavioral patterns. So it could be scalable, and sort of a paradox that you have big data, but you can be really specific. The bigger the data set, you can become really specific towards individuals. Now, what's important to realize is that AI is in no way capable nor being developed to replace people. It will replace some subtasks in certain care environments, but really it needs people also to be able to function well. So humans may need AI, but AI also needs humans for it to work well. And this is really this concept of hybrid intelligence, or augmenting intelligence, if you like. Now, to give you one example to make this a little bit more concrete, I'd like to focus on AI to support smart detection and prevention of fall incidents. In a smart sensor system that is developed to detect fall incidents, typically you have a camera or some other kind of sensor system that will detect movement, and some video analysis software that will register whether or not a person has an on-the-ground event, as they call it. And this, of course, would lead to the alerting of a professional to help out. If you scale this kind of a standard scenario to one that is smarter through AI, one could think of recording or keeping basically the video and the annotation in a growing data set, and training an algorithm to be able to distinguish, for instance, false positives, of which there are many, for instance, kneeling to look for something, interacting with a pet, cleaning a floor, kneeling to pray, etc. And being able to distinguish that from real events. And this will mean higher efficiency, for instance, for the professional being alerted. Also, one could identify near accidents, so things that have not led to an actual fall incident, but might actually signal at-risk events, which may lead to an actual accident the next time round. So in that database, that could also be annotated. And that could actually lead to an improved understanding of what kinds of environments are conducive to fall incidents and accidents. Right? One could analyze walking routes, lines of sight, support points, the lighting that is in the room, the visibility, carpeting, obstacles, etc. And one does not need to do this necessarily by hand. Eventually, the AI algorithm will detect such objects and will signal them as potential at-risk factors. And this might also help in supporting the person themselves in being able to avoid fall incidents by, for instance, redesign of the environment, or by signaling at a certain point that mobility has, developed some issues which put a person at risk. So in this sense, AI might be very helpful in having a smarter system that might actually not merely detect falls, but also prevent them. There are many different examples of potential AI applications in the service of people with dementia. I've categorized them in three broad groups. One is to support people with dementia in their lives and to enhance quality of life for people living with dementia. The second one is to enhance care efficiency, which is more focused on supporting nurses and doctors, if you like. And the third one is focused on scientific or clinical research, which takes the outcomes of some of the data and the algorithms and utilizes that, for instance, for making more informed recommendations or to look for patterns in data sets. Now, from reviewing the literature in this area, it is clear that the main category of current AI applications is focused on support of activities of daily living. Things like robotics to help a person get dressed or to cook a meal. Other areas have been explored, but not to a similar extent. And we can see that it's still very much early days in utilizing the potential of AI for people living with dementia, and also the kinds of studies and evidence that we need to make sure it's effective and really serves the needs of people with dementia still need to happen. A lot of the studies are still quite qualitative, quite small n in nature, and we need larger longitudinal studies really to look at the efficacy of AI in this particular context. Now, in the approach that we've taken to developing AI and other technologies, warm technologies, we really put the person with dementia at center stage. And we do this through a process known as co-design. And co-design is really about the active involvement of people with dementia. So we know from literature that many studies to date have actually focused on working with people around the person with dementia. So, for instance, probing informal carers or taking stock of what professional carers need and want. And even though they're reflecting on behalf of the person with dementia, you typically see a diverse set of needs emerge, which aren't a one-to-one mapping, let's say, on the needs of the person with dementia themselves. So we really are trying to actively call for research that is really focused on working with people with dementia, which is an incredibly rewarding and insightful process. To give you one example of such a process and what it might lead to, we have an example of wandering behavior in dementia. We know that people, like to take a walk frequently, but sometimes get lost whilst they're taking a walk. Now, various technological solutions have already been proposed and are in use. One being, of course, a sort of a GPS tracker with which one can find the person who is lost back. However, that might be a great solution for the people around the person with dementia, for the care staff or for the informal carers, partners, family, etc. But the person with dementia is still lost. So we were thinking about how to design a navigation system that is uncomplicated, it's really clear in its usage, that will really support a person with dementia and help them not to get lost and feel a sense of self-efficacy once again whilst wandering about. This is the final product that we come up with. It's called the Homing Compass, and it's a really nicely designed, sort of sturdy, compass-looking device with a single arrow that always points home. Now, this wasn't the first thing we thought of. In fact, we've gone through many different iterations, and a number of those iterations really were too complicated. I mean, there's a lot of functionality what one can have, and so we were thinking about, having certain choice of routes, for instance, or having elements of local interest also be represented on this device. But that ended up being too complicated. And all of that is being done in a process of co-design, which means that one really has to go back and forth in an interaction with the person with dementia, have them try out different prototypes and see what they think and how they behave in relation to those prototypes. And that co-design process is really done in context. So it's really done in the place, in this case, where the person needs to navigate, and it will involve not merely the person with dementia, but also the other stakeholders, of course, the partner, the family, informal carers, and professional carers as well. And it's typically done in an iterative fashion, so you don't get it right in one go. You really have to sort of iterate and improve along the way, testing it again and again and again. And so really is a process of social communication, a process of creative involvement, a process of making sure voices of people with dementia are being heard and being taken seriously into the design of any artifact or system. So I'd like to start wrapping up. We have a challenge that we see before us, in that we are trying to bridge worlds that are quite far apart, if you like. On the one hand, we have the world of the smart technologies, the AI and the techies, people who really understand technology in a very deep way and are really innovative in thinking about kind of solutions, but have a limited understanding of the real problems that may occur in the context of people with dementia and in professional care contexts. So really, in order to try and understand that, we need to reach out across that bridge from both sides, of course. And this is, I think, where co-creation and co-design come into play. And also, one of the main ambitions of the QoLead program is to be that bridge, to build that bridge through multidisciplinary collaboration. That's the co-creation part, and also the co-design part with people with dementia, their informal carers, and the professional care context. And by building that bridge, we can really develop technologies based on AI that are that add real value to people's lives. Now, this of course requires interdisciplinary collaboration. And from this slide, and I won't go through it all, but I think it's apparent that we need many different disciplines, starting, of course, with the people with dementia, people in the care context, of course, people in tech and co-design, but also people looking at ethics and implementation and impact, so that we are also trying to really have the technology land successfully and being used successfully in care contexts. And we are very fortunate to have a large number of partners partake in the QoLead program, both at sort of knowledge institute level, but also at sort of representatives of people living with dementia in the form of, for instance, Alzheimer Nederland, care organizations, care professionals, as well as organizations that really need to translate, say, technology to care practice, and are busying themselves with, how to pay for all this, and what are viable funding models. All of that together in a much larger context of other consortia, municipalities, other programs, which we relate to and are actively following. So this is more or less an invitation, if you like, to this open and growing interdisciplinary and continuously learning community that we're a part of, and we are trying to also help create. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention. I would like to thank the panel for allowing me to put this in a video. I would like to thank Michael Blom specifically for collaborating with us in the Expertise Center on Dementia and Technology. I can't personally answer any questions. I hope maybe some of the fellow panelists might be able to do that. And otherwise, I hope you've spotted my email address and find me online if you would like to know more. Thanks so much.
So there was a bit. Oh, am I on? Okay. I would like to thank Wijnand, but probably he's not hearing that. It was a quite lengthy presentation, so we should speed up the next two presentations. I think, Rucha, you will be the first one. Rucha Khot, you will be talking about designing an interactive agent. I would like to say that the presentation of Wijnand was pre-recorded, and I saw this picture of the bridge, I think, a half year ago already. So he's not picking on this bridging metaphor of the conference, but it was of his own already. So, Rucha, please, the floor is yours.
I think it's... Yeah. How do I... Okay, yeah. So hi, I'm going to be talking about the WECARE project that I'm a part of. WECARE stands for Warm Eindhoven Care Assistance and Responsible Engineering. With this project, I will be working on the design and development of an interactive agent for the dementia care context. So a bit more about interactive agents in healthcare. Yeah, let's take a look at them. Probably you recognize a few in there. As you can see, it includes a variety of robots, a few that are human-like the pepper one, a few that are quite similar to objects or beings that are in general familiar with us, like the baby harp seal. It could be non-embodied examples like the WooBot, which is a chatbot. And then there are other care bots like the one that Sarah has with screens on them. So while technology does have promising solutions, there are still a few problems that need to be addressed, and they will be addressed in this project. Firstly, there is limited impact that we see in practice. While the need for care is increasing, you don't really see that being translated with the technology being accepted because of the resistance that's felt in accepting it in everyday life by the caregivers and also by dementia patients. Then there is a lack that is seen in the emotional and social support that is being addressed. Like Wijnand also mentioned, the attention being more towards addressing the cognitive abilities and just physical support. And then there are responsible engineering concerns. So what is okay to be done with technology, what is not, and that really impacts the acceptance in how comfortable you feel in accepting the technology and, trusting it as well. So that's where the term warm technology fits in. Warmness in technology can be seen in contrast to the coldness in the experience that you have when interacting with a few interactive agents, like the ones we saw in the first slide. With the coldness in the screens, the coldness in the robotic interactions, where you, as a user, might be looking for more of a human-like or a more familiar a way to connect. So with warm technology, the first point is to prioritize a person's lived experiences, to really look at this person, the needs, and to involve that person actively in the design process, to understand the needs and more even their expectations with what they want. The technology and people, it is important to understand the dynamics between them, the complex interrelations, and also the smaller nuances, like the small interactions that they have with the technology. And to finally address the need for a meaningful and social activity, to really look at this person as an individual who's had a life full of experiences, and how all of that can be made more personalized through the intervention. With that being said, one goal of the project is to really explore the interaction that a person has with the agent with a more human-like or an object that is familiar to you. There is already a perception of how the interaction could feel like, should be like, but with more abstract forms and through explorations in sound, light, and touch, there is quite some scope with AI developments to explore interaction and perception for dementia care. That being said, the goal of the project is to not replace human care, but to see and find out ways in which human care can be helped with and augmented to bring in personalization and to make technology solutions more user-friendly. So in summary, the goal of the project is twofold: to focus on the social and emotional needs through the application of warm technology and person-centered care in the dementia context, and to focus on the technical development through responsible engineering of interactive agents, also focusing on the long-term use and integration in everyday life. For the project, there is quite some involvement of the industry with the aim of bringing academic research also to market and to also work really closely with the developments in AI and technology. For that, it's not really a linear chain, but for the manufacturing phase, there would be TU Eindhoven, Fontis, TinyBots, Sara Robotics, Philips Design. The distribution would make use of the network of TU Eindhoven, Expertise Center, Dementia Technology, and Alzheimer Nederland. And people with dementia, the caregivers, family members, and the care organizations that are affiliated with ECDT will be largely involved at each stage. Finally, a bit more about me. I'm a PhD candidate at TU Eindhoven, and I've just only started 2 weeks ago, so I'll be working on this for the coming 4 years. And what I plan to do with my PhD is to really bring in my background of electronics engineering and see how technology and ethics in technology can play a role, and to also focus on the people aspect through my master's in product design. I'll be mentored by Minhali and Rens Brinker from TU Eindhoven. I really thank TU Eindhoven and Alzheimer Nederland and also Alzheimer Europe for giving me this opportunity at such an early stage to just come and talk about my work. Hopefully in the next year, I'll already be talking about what I did with the project, and yeah. Till then, I would like to leave you with the question of how you envision the future of care now that you've heard Wijnand talk about it, and also a little bit with my project. That's where you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm also open to questions and just hearing about your thoughts and draw some inspiration. It's already been quite inspirational with the 3 days. And yeah, thank you.
So how about bridging the gap between technology and care in your own person as well? So you had a warm bath of this conference. Good to know. The next presentation will be of Francesca Toso. Yeah? Okay, you can pronounce it better than I do. Okay. Please, she will be talking about certification of the design project.
Thank you, Marco. So my name is Francesca Toso, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Eindhoven University of Technology. And I'm here today to share with you the work that we have been doing within the Interagno Western Europe Certification D project. If you are not familiar with the Interact project, I will just spend a quick word on that. So it's a program, part of the European Cohesion Policy and financed by the European Regional Development Fund. And specifically, the Certification D project has been distributed towards the Northwestern Europe area. That is in the context of the project starting in 2019, and the project will end in 2023, and has been involving different countries that you can see here represented with these different partners. So we had partners from UK, from the Netherlands, from which I'm representing the Eindhoven University of Technology, October as a care home and care organization based in Eindhoven, Willems. Then we also have partners in Belgium, Lucas School of Art, and the care organization from the city of Genk, Alexianer, Climax, and the GGT as a certifying body, and a hospital from the German state, and then we have representatives in France with Senora Dome and Santic. So as you see, we have had a partnership between different realities. So we have universities, we have care organizations, we have care homes, and we have care practitioners. But that's not enough. So our mission is to guarantee good quality products, the systems and services for people living with dementia, and support and encourage companies to design well for people with dementia. And companies is exactly where we try to bridge the gap that was meant by Wijnand before, and also from Rucha. How do we bring the research that is done in the academic context and what we learn and what people learn from practice to the market, to people, and how can we improve and how can we put together all this knowledge towards helping and improve the quality of life, specifically within the home context. Our project supports indeed SMEs, small and medium countries distributed in the Northwestern Europe area, that develop and market innovative, reliable, self-determined home living products for people with dementia. And with self-determined, we expect that to be used from people with dementia, like aligning with the concept of warm technologies. It's not something that is dedicated to the care from some external persons, that they are extremely important and involved in the care of the person with dementia, but we also want to acknowledge that the person with dementia by themselves, they can still be able to take care of themselves. So in collaboration with partners from research and care institutions, we worked on the definition of some design standards. What does a good product need to have to be used from a person with dementia? How can we address a person without stigmatizing them, not just in terms of aesthetics, but also in terms of interaction? What is the best technology? And if, like Wijnand said before, if technology is really needed, or if it's really the best solution for a specific interaction. So from those design standards, we also started, and we hope to set up an international certification process that includes the evaluation process done by people with dementia of those technologies, that allows us to then share towards the network, international network of people with dementia, those technologies as something that has been used, has been approved, and certified as something that can really help to improve the quality of life. So the main outputs of the project expected from when the project was written 4 years ago, of course, improving innovation network. So there are a lot of people already working on that. We here are a representation on how extensive the interest is from different countries and from different professionals. How can we improve this network? How can we work towards making the communication between what we are doing in the different places more effective and also more impactful in the end? Certification process and test mark. How can we give to companies also a seal or a mark that can help them to market their product towards the right markets? How can people know that that specific product is something that they can use in a safe way in their home environment? And also support SMEs also to market their own design and their own solutions in different countries, and bring in this cooperation ongoing between companies, research institutions, care providers, people with dementia, and caregivers. For now in the Northwestern Europe area, but hopefully to expand that to other European countries. If you want to learn more specifically on the extension of the project or on different aspects, I would warmly invite you to take a look at the website, Certification D. But what I would like to do in the remaining minutes is to go a bit more in detail on what we have doing within the University of Technology within the project. So what I've been working on in the past 2 years within the team of the ECDT has been managing and design support activities towards 2 specific work packages that are 2 specific actions within the whole project, implying the coordination of partners for the living labs, and I will explain in just some slides what a living lab is, setting up the voucher scheme for involving SMEs. When I presented you the list of partners and participants, there were no companies in there. So how do we pretend to work with companies if we don't have companies involved? And that's how the voucher scheme, when the voucher scheme comes in. And this is also connected to the testing phases. So we don't just believe that the companies are doing the products for people with dementia, we also want to see that in real life, to check if the product is really working, if people really like and accept that kind of technology in their own environment. And then we provide some design support based on those observations. We are designers, that's what we can do. So if it does work, perfect, that's amazing. Yeah, the company already got the goal. But what happens when something is not working? How can we help to implement the product with the feedback from the real users? And for that, we also worked on the development of a design toolkit and an open source platform that companies can use autonomously to improve their own design based on the knowledge that we got within the project. So, as I mentioned before, and as you heard in the previous introductions, in the Research Center on Dementia Technology, we try to really involve people with dementia cares, companies, and try to accelerate research by bringing what we are studying and what we are learning within the university into the practice. And we know that medicine is not yet there. We also heard that in the previous days. We don't have a cure for dementia yet. There is a limited amount of things that we can do for prevention, and there are also like kind of contrasting opinions on that, and we all know that. We heard that in the previous day, and we also learned that there are still a lot of opportunities of technologies for shortening the implementation gap. A lot of things are there, but why they don't reach the people that are still in need of care? So what we try to do with the approach of worm technologies is to avoid complexity. Don't see as technology as a solution, but use technology as a mean. We have heard that in the previous presentation as well. Technology is not going to solve dementia or to resolve all the problems of the world. We can use that as a mean to improve what we are doing in our daily life, our daily activity, and in all the different professions. And this with a person-centered perspective. And in this case, we talk about people with dementia, we talk about formal and informal caregivers, and we talk also about the companies that are really persons that might be motivated and maybe they found their own solution for their own context and they want to share that and to bring that to other people. So the concept of worm technology has already been addressed, so I will just skip quickly this slide to go to how do we work and to this Phantomatic Living Lab. What is a living lab? When we talk about living labs, we talk about bringing the technologies and bringing the laboratory experience and the research field on the real life environment. So we don't bring persons with dementia in a laboratory in a really, let's say, uncomfortable setting that they don't know to just check if they like to touch the screen and if the application is really working. So no, we do exactly the opposite. We bring the application, we bring the products, we bring the technology at the home of people with dementia. We leave the technologies with them, and we see after a while what was their experience of use in a long term. So unsupervised, we don't give instructions. So the persons are able to explore by themselves what the technology is doing, how the product is working, if it is really something that is working and they can use on their own. We do that in a multi-stakeholder collaboration. You heard how many different kind of partners we are working with all the time. And we try to do that in real-life environments, involving users as co-creators. They tell us what is not working in the projects. We don't give any hint on the color that the application is to have, on the materiality, on the weight, or the weight, because that's also something that is connected to technology. And we really want to have the person-centered perspective in our work. You can see here some of the pictures of our activities that are not just connected to the testing itself, but it's also long-term engagement. We don't just hire participants for a study and that's it. We create a relationship with the persons that we are working with. We want to keep this person-centered perspective also in the way that we work together. It's not just a one-on, one-off relation in which we need a person, we go to the person, and that's it, but we really want to have this long-term engagement. And the system of living labs is a specific kind of testing, use, and a co-creation setting that we can see positioned between the users as co-creators and real-life environment. That's not the only way to design. As you can see in this slide, there are a lot of other methodologies that are also valid. This is just what we are using in this specific context. And you can see that the living labs in this context of this project have been based on a protocol that expects different phases from engagement, different check-ins during the testing, and final outgoing of the research. And within the context of the Interact Certification D project, we had 3 different specialities from the living labs. So there was a living lab focusing mainly on the concept of enabling what people can still do on leisure, because quality of life means also having fun and really have the time to enjoy a little bit of free time without any worry. And last but not least, safety and security, because of course you cannot do any of the previous activities if you don't feel safe and secure in your own environment. What we have done for involving SMEs within the project is sending out 2 calls for vouchers. We had wave 1, wave 2, in which we asked for companies that had products for people with dementia to connect with us and share with us their products for a specific amount of time that allowed us to give the products to some of the participants and to let them test the product and receive feedback. After the call for vouchers, we had a selection of those companies and we distributed the products and the companies within the different countries and the living labs. You can also imagine that if a company comes from a specific state, they might already have the product set up with a specific language, with an instruction manual in a specific language. So that was also one of the criteria that we took into account. If you go online on the website, you can also see the content of the call for vouchers. We had some limitations in this case. We couldn't and we didn't test any medical device for, of course, also ethical reasons. We are not doctors. We are not going to prove if something is working medically, and we don't want to put on risk our participants by playing out with some medical results. So no medical products. Also something we required companies to be located in the Northwestern Europe area. And we asked them to, of course, be available to provide us with the products and to be willing to participate and to work with the people with dementia. We are now elaborating the results, and we already had 2 different great outcomes from this process. One in terms of the design support and one in terms of the certification process. Certification process has been set up. Now we are in the, let's say, setup of the sustainability phase of the project. Project is going to terminate in 2023, in March next year. But of course, we set up the process for being able to be continuing after this. And we want the certification to be set up and distributed in the following years. And we, of course, need a bigger network of living labs to be on board, because this is covering Northwestern Europe. But as I said before, the aim is to expand that to all Europe at least. On terms of design support, what is interesting is that from the living labs, we received a lot of feedback. We had a lot of questionnaires. We didn't want to only have a yes and no answer or just numerical data, but we really, really valued what was the opinion. And also companies were really happy about this result. And we distribute the results of the living labs of the questionnaires in 4 different categories: the aesthetics, the information, the functionality, and the interaction. So if the manual was working, if it was clear what the product was doing without having previous instructions, if it was easy to operate that, like to plug it in or not, if you needed Wi-Fi, if you have Wi-Fi at home, and a lot of small details that maybe companies sometimes don't really think about, but they are really needed in everyday use in a home environment. So based on the outcomes of the questionnaires, we had the support of Lucas School of Art and the Fontis in focusing on specific one of the aspects. And together with the company, they had a co-creation session in which they talked along on how to improve their product and how to make it better and how to solve some of the issues that were found during the testing. After that, results were delivered to the company. We are also still in the process of delivering the results for a voucher Web 2. And we can also say that we had a nice occasion to find some challenges within the living labs. So there were some communications with the companies that was not always working well. We also had a lot of issues with the recruitment of participants. It was Corona in the last 2 years. We all have experienced that. We also had this experience, especially when we wanted to go recruit participants in their own houses or when we wanted to visit them for interviews. We also had some ethical approvals that were delayed. So of course, without the ethical approval, we will not start a test. So that was also something that happened. But besides that, we really received a lot of good feedback that we tried to implement and to share within a pilot of a website. That is the open access tool that I mentioned before, divided with some dementia-friendly guidelines, a design toolbox, and some use cases that we are now collecting and developing. And this was mainly a tool for SMEs, but also for care organizations and other interested parties working on the context of dementia. And we expect to use this tool for informing about product, system, and different service development that can support the development of further products. And that should be a really easy tool and something nice to use and accessible, and of course is not does not substitute a design consultancy, but gives some hints for people that already have an idea or have time or they want to get to some specific development. How did we get there? We started with an initial brainstorming between design researchers and practitioners. Then we also had an index of needs from SMEs. We asked to the companies, as co-creators in this case, what they wanted to hear, what they were missing, what they needed to learn about dementia, and how they could do that with us. And also we asked for the same from the people with dementia and their caregivers. What do they miss within the market and the product on the market? So we had the first iteration of the platform. We worked with workshops in which we checked if that was nice or not. And what we end up with is this kind of tool. So we started, we had a really clean overview, a really nice graph. Then we realized that was not the way that we wanted to go. So we mixed up stuff again, as you can see in the image on the right. And that was really working because that was like a lot of brainstorming on what we need to have there. And from that, we still kept talking. We kept asking people if they recognized the model that we were presenting them. And we discussed that in different contexts with different people, with different participants, and we are still working on that. We are not done yet. And what we have developed so far and we have discussed is this interactive chart in which we try to show that the process is not a linear process, that things can be reiterated, and maybe sometimes you don't need to go through all the steps to get to a good product. So we try to offer different scenarios in which maybe company needs to start and they have a good idea and they want to develop the product, or they already have a product on the market and they think that can be adapted to help people living with dementia. So we kind of try to translate what we have learned within the process in some steps that can be used and looked for by people having companies that they want to develop something that can help people with dementia living at home. I think that now I'm on time to close by. I would like to have an open discussion. If you have questions, we are more than happy to listen from you, and we are more than happy if you want to get in touch with us, if you have good ideas, or if you want to participate in some of our studies, or if you want to give a contribution to what we are doing. And yeah, I will just leave some contacts here. Thanks for listening to me. I hope I was not talking too fast, but I tried to stay on time.
Speaking about time, we're running out of it a bit, but thank you for your tour de force, I would say, picturing the whole project you're in, and well, bringing it to the future phase would be very nice, and see what comes out of it, because I think everybody's very curious about what are these criteria for designing a real proper product for people living with dementia, and maybe help us reach the market. And what I especially liked from the approach is that companies need to be in. So we're talking a lot about user involvement, but the companies are as important perhaps, because the care alone will not solve the problem of having these technology on a good scale available for all of our people living with dementia. If somebody has a burning question, one, who's not too modest and will ask the question of this session? Wrong formulation my side. Okay. Then shall we leave it open, and maybe it's good that the invitation is, be part of our network, try to talk with us, interact with all the projects that are going on, but that's a more general advice from me. There's so much going on technology, but we need to bring it together and see what comes out the best and bring it to the market of people living with dementia. So maybe that's by means of rounding up. Yes? Okay. Thank you. And have a good conference or a good flight back, because I know people are leaving a bit soon.